In this video, we're going to talk about the difference between bleach, degreasers, soaps, and acids. Bleach is something that we use every single day. Bleach is used for mold, algae, mildew, those types of things. It kills organic stains. When we're using bleach, when it's coming through the pressure washer, the strength of that bleach by the time it goes through 200 feet of hose, and it's being pumped through 8 gallons a minute, is usually a percentage of about 1 to 2%. What makes bleach so effective is not actually the bleach itself, it's what's contained in that bleach called sodium hypochlorite. In the pressure washing world, they just simply abbreviate that as SH. When we go to SCP to fill up with our bleach, the percentage of SH that's contained within that chlorine is 10.5%. To give you a comparison, when you go to the store and you buy store-bought bleach, the sodium hypochlorite is the percentage will be on the bottle labeled somewhere. It's typically somewhere between 0.5% up to about 3%. So you can see that what makes that pool chlorine so effective versus just regular store-bought bleach is you get a much higher concentrate of the sodium hypochlorite in that chlorine. Typically in Florida, it's somewhere between 10 to 13%. Again, it's used for any mold, mildew, algae. Everywhere in Florida has it. That's why we use it every day. It's very effective. If you have to use a stronger percentage than what's coming out of the pressure washer hose, again, after it's going through the downstream injector and those kind of things, 50-50 mix. 50-50 just simply means that it's half water and half bleach. And what we typically do is we put that in a pump-up sprayer. It can take 2 or 3 or 4 applications sometimes. It's rare, but it can happen. And then sometimes you may even have to agitate that area with a brush and then rinse it thoroughly. But most of the time, bleach will get the area clean without having to scrub with a brush or anything. But the very few rare occasions you may have to agitate it with the brush. Every now and then, probably less than once a month, we'll have to even use a stronger percentage because for whatever reason it's turned to what we call gold mustard bleach. It's like a yellow looking bleach or a dark black. It's just not coming up with even a 50-50. It will come up with a 50-50, but it's going to take a lot of applications and a lot of scrubbing sometimes. So we'll go stronger than a 50-50 mix. That's one of those things you want to ask the crew leader before you are approved of using something stronger than a 50-50 mix, because bleach can be corrosive. It can do a lot of damage. It can take the paint off the doors, off walls. It can change the color. So you got to always do a test spot. And anytime you're using something stronger than 50-50, get approval from your crew leader first. When it comes to degreasers, just like the word says, it's used for grease and oil and hydraulic stains, those type of stains. For us, we'll get a few occasions where we get asked to remove some oil. Oil is never a guaranteed success. At best, we tell customers that we can get most oil stains up about 50 to 70%, but 100% oil removal is never guaranteed. 100% grease removal is never guaranteed. So keep that in mind. We're trying to set that expectation for the customer. I like to use around 70% removal. So if we do get anything higher than that, they're ecstatic. But they're not, you never want to say 100% because even if you get 90%, you're going to disappoint the customer. So always start low and hope for the best. With the products that we use, we have typically good results. But again, it's one of those things you can't promise them 100%. So we do a lot of paver sealing, as you know. The grease stains that we typically see are around a pool deck. A lot of times the customer has a barbecue pit out there and they get asked to move it, or they've already moved it in the past and you'll see little drip stains. typically going right out the door. That's from the drip pan of that barbecue pit. It's spilled onto the pavers. Again, a strong degreaser works most of the time with some heat added to it. It doesn't always require heat, but when we use heat for the tough, stubborn stains, we like to use it around 160 degrees. Now there's also caustic degreasers. Those are for your really, really, really bad areas. If we're using a caustic degreaser, you're going to have to pre-wet any walls or paint, and you're going to definitely want to make sure that you're trying to keep that off of any painted surfaces or any unnecessary surfaces. Many times when I'm putting a caustic degreaser down, our caustic degreasers are our Stampede Plus or our Ground Force. Unless it's a large area, I put it down with a pump-up sprayer so that I can control the spray and I can make sure it's only going on the areas that are needed and not going on any unnecessary areas, such again as paint and doors and things like that. They can take the paint right off instantly. So again, you want to pre-wet any unnecessary areas, put it down, and then if you accidentally got it on a wall or paint or glass, rinse it off immediately. But your strong caustic degreasers are used for like your dumpster pads, restaurant areas where there's a lot of foot traffic, or right by the kitchen door where those cooks are going in and out, and they've got grease and they're hauling grease and oil to the dumpster pad. You'll see it right there on the concrete. So that's why we would use a caustic degreaser. When it comes to acids, acids are used for rust, mineral stains, fertilizer stains. When you see that orange tint, no pressure is going to get that off. It's going to require an acid majority of the time. When we're using acid, when we're spraying acid, you definitely want to make sure that you're using a mask, some gloves at all times, spraying acid. And you never want to mix acid with bleach, because if you do that, it's going to create a mustard gas. So if you're using bleach, sometimes you'll have an instance where it's really, really black and it looks like an organic stain. It looks like some old mold or mildew, and you're hitting it and you're going 50-50 and it's still not coming up, and you get approval and you go even straight bleach and that's not working either. The next step would be to turn to acid. And 99% of the time, that will get it up. However, if you've been spraying that area with bleach, make sure, I cannot foot stomp this enough, that you thoroughly rinse that area before you put the acid on there, because we don't want to be creating any mustard gas, not only for ourselves, but any customers or neighbors nearby. So when we use our acid, I like to mix the acid and our degreasers 50-50 or stronger. With the degreaser, I like to start out at 50-50, and most of the time that works. Go a little stronger. With acid, I go 50-50, start off half water, half acid. When you're mixing acid and water, I cannot foot stomp this enough. Make sure you're always adding acid to water, never water to acid, never, ever. It's always acid to water. But typically our acid strength is 50-50. You can go straight, but always try 50-50 first. And sometimes it's going to take 3 or 4 applications. But that's what you use your acids for. Again, your rust, your mineral stains, well water stains, any of that orange tint. When it comes to rust removal with an acid, the big blotchy areas are a lot easier to clean than those real small circled areas that are really concentrated. When it comes to grease and oil and rust, we never promise 100% removal, ever. With the big rust spots with acid, we 9 times out of 10 can get 95% to 100% removal. But again, you got to set those expectations. Surfactants, it's just a fancy word for soap. We use surfactants in everything just about except for like an acid. It can be used with acid, but surfactants are effective because surfactants are what help break down whatever it is we're cleaning, lift it up the surface, and then it just makes cleaning that area and rinsing too much faster and efficient. So there's all different types of surfactants, soaps out there on the market. We have a couple that we like. You can set it to whatever settings you like. I like to be able to see the soap when it comes out. I don't like it too strong, but again, a surfactant is just a fancy word for soap, and it helps lift those stains off of the substrate of whatever you're cleaning to make it easier to get it hopefully the first or second time that you spray, and then also rinse with that. Again, this is a recap on bleach is used for organic stains such as mold, mildew, algae. Degreasers are used for grease, oil, hydraulic stains, something like that. Acid is used for your rust, your mineral stains, your well water stains, your fertilizer stains. What happens to like these customers, they're having their yards treated, and the guys that are treating their yards are putting down fertilizer, and that fertilizer leaks onto the concrete or those nearby areas, and it stains it. And the customers, you know, they've tried to pressure wash it, it's not coming off. It's not going to come off because you got to use an acid to neutralize the pigment into that area. So that's why an acid is needed to neutralize that pigment, the iron pigment actually. And then again, our surfactants just help us clean and rinse much faster. And that's a recap on the difference in use with the bleach, degreasers, soaps, and acids. I'll leave you with two things when it comes to soaps. When you're doing pool screens, you want to use very little soap because it's really tough to rinse out pool screens if they're been hit heavy with soap. And then when it comes to spider webs, every now and then we do areas that got a lot of cobwebs or those eggs. You want to use a heavy soap on those because that'll actually help rinse those off and clean those off much faster. Just a little trick for you. Thank you.